Tristan, tell me the biggest storylines out of Dallas for 2024.
One question is, can they finally win some playoff games and make a deep playoff push? I don't even think that's on the table because I think they're worse than last year. I think the question surrounding Dallas this year is going to be the Dak Prescott situation. Are they going to re-sign him? Is this going to be the last year with Dak Prescott? What should they do? I've got a graphic here I want to pull up. This is Dak Prescott's career. Does this man warrant a $55+ million contract? As you can see, 2023, 12-5, 0-1 in the playoffs. 2022, 8-4, 1-1 in the playoffs. That's what stands out to me. Yes, he's got the yards. He's got the touchdown interceptions. You can look at all those numbers for yourself. But when you look at the playoff record, 0-1, 1-1, 0-1, missed, 1-1, missed, 0-1. We've got 2 playoff wins since 2016. I know it is not all on him, but we've talked about this before. At the end of the day, I can't give a quarterback with 2 playoff wins since 2016 $55 million. I cannot do it. So I'm interested to see how that situation unfolds because I'm starting to think Dallas isn't going to do it either.
They've had minimal offseason moves. The offseason hasn't impressed me much. Jerry Jones states that they're all in, whatever that means.
Right.
And, you got Zeke back, which doesn't fire anybody up, I don't believe.
He's
pretty
their
much
starting
washed.
running back, Ryan.
But why? Why is he?
I know.
So that won't last, I don't believe. There's no way it can. I don't think he is capable of being a starting running back anymore. I think that day's past him. Not that he was never not good. He was definitely really good at some point.
Yeah, absolutely.
But running backs, excluding Derrick Henry, are notorious for hitting that 28, 29-year-old peak, and they fall off.
Yeah, even before that, really, yeah.
And they become a Mark Ingram. What I'm most concerned about is the first 6 weeks of this schedule. It is absolutely brutal, man. I mean, it is, and strength of schedule, they fall somewhere in the middle of the pack, right? But You look at the first 6 games, and you got Cleveland, New Orleans, Baltimore, New York, maybe, Pittsburgh, and then Detroit, and then you hit the bye week in 7. You're going to need it after that run, and then, come back in week 8 and play San Francisco. It's a rough start. A lot of times these teams can kind of cupcake their way through the first half of the season, hit their bye mid-year, and then go into the rest of the year headstrong, blowing through teams that have been beaten up maybe.
Dallas is kind of the opposite.
They're teeing off in some hostile territory, And
now, it does get easier down the stretch, right? But that first gauntlet is kind of rough.
Yeah, I mean, you got teams later on in the season, like your last 4 games of the year is Carolina, Tampa, Philadelphia the second time, and then Washington. So, yeah, maybe your last 4 games mean a lot to you versus the first half of the schedule. But I'm just saying, man, like Dak's had some health problems. He hasn't been the healthiest quarterback out there. What's this team going to look like after week 7? That's my question to you.
I think they're going to look the same as all. This is the thing with Dak Prescott. Like, I'll even push back. Like, yeah, he had the one bad injury. It was touch and go there for a minute, but
he had the thumb thing too, right? Wasn't he the one with the thumb?
But he's looked great since particularly coming off that injury. The problem for Dak Prescott is he's great in the regular season and he's bad in the playoffs. Now, we can't put it all on him, but at the end of the day, when we're talking about a $55 million contract, that's who it has to fall on. And as you said, Jerry Jones has said they're all in. That's what we all kind of keep joking about. But I don't blame them because they haven't been. Yeah, exactly. They haven't been able to do anything this offseason because Dak Prescott's taken such a massive cap hit. And because of that, they haven't gotten better from last year. You've got Micah Parsons who wants to be paid, CeeDee Lamb who wants to be paid. They're going to have to find out and deal with those contracts. And I think Mike McCarthy is essentially on a basically 1-year leash and he's going to be gone. This almost feels like a lame duck year for Dallas. I just don't see a way around it. And I think until the Dak Prescott thing is settled, however it ends up being settled, that's going to be the cloud hanging over the Cowboys this season.
The season comes to week 14 or 15, right? You had your bye week in week 7. Where do you see Dallas standing week 14, 15 in the NFC?
I mean, I think they're going to be a playoff team. I'm not trying to give cop-out answers, but of course, I don't think they're going to miss the playoffs. I think they're going to kind of do the same thing they do every year. They're not going to win.
Status quo, then.
Yeah, status quo. They're not going to win the division. I don't think they're going to win the division. I think Philly will. But I think they're going to make a wild card and then probably lose the first playoff game. Maybe they get lucky and win the wild card, and then they're going to lose in the divisional. that's what Dallas has done my entire life, and nothing's going to change this year because they've gotten worse from last year. So I don't see it getting better. I hate it, but that's just what it is. And I'm at the point where I think Jerry Jones knows he makes so much money off of the brand that he's built with the Cowboys. I don't think he really cares if they make it to the conference championship game. Even though he plays like he does, it doesn't matter. They're going to make tons of money regardless. And I think this is going to be Dak's last season with him.
I'm willing to say that if they don't make it through the playoffs this time, it could be Dak's last season. But I stand firm to my point I've made for the past 2 seasons we've done this show. It's if Jerry Jones is still in control and he still micromanages like he does, this team will never reach a Super Bowl under his reign. That's just my opinion.
I agree.
And you can't shake me off of this rock.
Was the late season collapse of 2023 because of the coordinators? You know, they lost Steichen, they lost Gannon, and they just didn't do a good job replacing them, and that was a one-off? Or was it something else? And can Sirianni right the ship? Can Sirianni get 2024 back to 2022 Eagles standards? Because that year is starting to seem more like an outlier. That's the question everyone has about the Eagles. I don't care who you are, was Jalen Hurts' performance in 2022 a one-hit wonder? Was last year a sign of things to come? Or was it just a bad second half of the season? And mostly, more so than Jalen Hurts and the offense, I'm worried about the defense. Ryan, please look at this graphic for me. Comparing their last 2 seasons on defense, so with Gannon in 2022 and then last year in 2023, points allowed, they were 8th and then to 29th in the league. Yards allowed, they were 3rd and then dropped to 26th. Pass yards allowed, best defense in the league, 31st defense in the league. Sacks, first most sacks in 2022, 20th in 2023. Interceptions, 5th in 2022, 26th in 2023. Almost every single defensive category not just went down from 22 to 23, it fucking plummeted. So I think that is the big question around the Eagles. I think Hurts can play solid. I don't know if he'll play how he did in 2022 because I think Shane Steichen is a genius and he got the most out of him. But can the defense get back to that level? Maybe they can't get back to top 5, but they have to get into top 10 in most of those categories if they want to be a legit contender against San Francisco and Detroit, in my opinion.
Does that affect you going into the season? If you're Jalen Hurts, are you starting to get the jitters? Are you starting to wonder if you're maybe a one-hit wonder or what?
I don't think Jalen Hurts is. I think he, believes in himself. I think he knows he's talented, and I believe in Jalen Hurts. But when you are talking
should get
about
that on a shirt,
right? But when you're talking about that season when Shane Steichen was your coordinator, I think we've all seen now Shane Steichen is one of the most brilliant minds in football right now. So there's no way you're going to replicate that. I just think the offense needs to kind of reinvent itself. I think Jalen Hurts needs to find more confidence. And also, Ryan, the thing that we're kind of all tiptoeing around is health. Jalen Hurts was injured basically the whole second half of last year. I give him credit. He played through it. He's a tough football player, but that has to be something he's able to manage because if he's constantly dealing with injuries and they're running him as much as they are, I don't know how you have sustained success that way. So I hope they're able to find a way to manage that. We know that Howie Roseman's built a great team. We know they've drafted really well. I think the question is Nick Sirianni a great coach? We still don't know why they collapsed last year. We've heard a bunch of platitudes. We've heard guys talk about the energy and things being off. We don't know what happened inside that building. Obviously, most of those guys like Sirianni because a lot of them came to his defense when it looked like he could get fired. I think that's the question. Is he going to be the man for the Eagles or are they going to move on? Because their schedule isn't that tough. And in the NFC, they should easily win their division and they should easily, win a playoff game if they are able to get back to their, level of play they're accustomed to.
Yeah, their schedule this year, if you take their opponent's combined winning percentage from 2023, they have one of the easiest schedules on the books. But that doesn't mean anything to me. You can throw out these stats all day long, and it's great on paper, and sometimes I like to rely on them. But as far as preseason schedules go, when you're looking at it this early, you don't know what any of these teams are going to be. You don't know
what they did last year. Doesn't matter.
You don't know if the first 4 minutes somebody's going to tear an Achilles. You don't know what's going to happen, right?
Exactly.
So this is subject to change. But right now, what we have in front of us, it's an easier schedule than last year. Now, do you think that the Eagles have an equal shot at making the playoffs as they did last year?
Well, I think there's no question they're making the playoffs. Because last year they were great, then they collapsed and then just, got destroyed by Tampa at the first round of the playoffs. Yeah. I think they're going to be better than that. I think they're going to make the playoffs and be competitive, but I don't know if they're going to be a top contender in the NFC. It's still too early. Me and you don't do our official predictions until basically August, but I kind of don't know what to expect. What do you think? Are you feeling like, just in your gut, are you thinking they're going to be able to return to form, or you think it's going to be somewhere in the middle, or how do you see it playing out? Because I don't have a strong feeling one way or another. I know that's not good for a sports show, but it's kind of wait and see.
Right, and I've teeter-tottered with this, right? I've gone back and forth. Typically, we're blasted for our opinions on here, so I'm going to give mine. I don't think that the Eagles have the same drive as they did in 2022. I feel like losing Steichen is a huge deal to Jalen Hurts. I feel like that was his comfort blanket, and I don't think he's played right since. Jalen Hurts, he has a lot of heart. He has a lot of drive. People like playing for him, and he'll put the game on his shoulders and go win it himself. However, you're not going to have the same components that you did back in 2022 and not even in 2023. So it's going to be interesting to see how Jalen navigates this season and see if he's maybe in the offseason stepped up a little bit to say, hey, I can be more than just a one-man show. I can disperse the ball more. I can rely less on the run. I think that kind of hurt him last year because a lot of teams learned how to shut him down on the run, and his legs weren't as effective as they had been in years past.
Well, and their offense, it was a little one-dimensional. So when you were able to shut the run down, they didn't have a lot of tools. I mean, they were
Exactly, that's my point.
Yeah, they were operating a college offense, and I think that's the big thing. I know we keep going back to it, but you mentioned it with Shane Steichen. I don't think Nick Sirianni is a great coach, and I know Eagles fans are going to come at me, but here's what I wonder. What does he do great? He doesn't call the plays. As a matter of fact, when he called the plays, it was a disaster. That's why they brought Shane Steichen in. And obviously, when Steichen left, we've seen a decrease. He doesn't call the defense, so then you say, oh, well, he's a leader. Okay, but when they fall apart like that last year, that doesn't look like a great leader. We've seen him be, outwardly, I don't know what the word is, tacky, or crass to fans and cussing fans out. And I'm sure Philadelphia fans like that mentality, but it kind of rubs me the wrong way. You can get away with it when the results are good, and I give him credit for that Super Bowl run, but they have to right the ship this year, or I think he's going to be gone, because whether it's fair or not, Philadelphia doesn't put up with coaches. They fired Andy Reid, for God's sakes.
Tristan, tell me the biggest storylines circling the Arizona Cardinals going into the 2024 season.
I think we were all surprised last year that Gannon turned out to be a pretty good coach. I know they were a bad team, but they played better and harder than any of us expected. They played hard for him, especially down the stretch. Go and watch those week 17, 18 games. When Arizona had nothing to play for, they were playing hard for Gannon. I think he's got a good future there. The number one question, the number one storyline around Arizona, everyone knows it, it is Kyler Murray.
Did anybody check to see if there was a new gaming system being released this year?
No, I think we're good. I think we're good at least one more year. I can't
completely changes my bet.
Also, good news is that the EA Sports college football game comes out in the summer, so he'll probably be bored with it by the time we get to September. He'll be ready to roll.
You have great points here.
The question is Kyler Murray going to step up and earn that contract? Is he going to prove that he's a top 10 quarterback in the league? This is probably the number one thing you have been the most right about since we've done this show. You said when it was around Kyler Murray contract talks, you said you wouldn't pay him. You wouldn't give him that massive contract. He hasn't done anything to deserve it. You thought it was a mistake. Looks like you were right. I was a little more on the fence with it. I like Kyler Murray. I think he can be a good quarterback. The problem is each year he's been in the league, he's gotten worse. And he took a step back. He took a step back. He had the injury. He did look good last year coming back off the injury, but it's hard to judge. This is it for me. I mean, and for everybody. This is a make it or break it year for Kyler Murray. You can't get out of the contract. It is what it is. But this season, 2024, is going to determine whether Kyler Murray is the long-term future at quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals.
What concerns me is, are these weapons around Kyler Murray going to make him any different? Because I don't know that the answer is yes to that.
Yeah, I don't either. I think the jury's still out because I don't think we know what type of team we're going to get. I think we know between Marvin Harrison Jr. and then Trey McBride, the tight end I really like, he's got something to work with. Okay, so you can't write it off and say, oh, well, he doesn't have anything. Kyler Murray has had decent receivers most of his career. He's just got to make the most of the opportunity. I don't know what kind of offensive line they're going to have. That's a big part of it. But is he going to be able to play more quarterback? We know how great he is, running around, escaping, creating plays that aren't there. He also has a big arm, and he throws some great deep bombs. Where Kyler Murray struggles is throwing over the middle of the field because he's short and he struggles to see the middle of the field. That's just a fact. Is he going to be able to overcome that and prove he's the franchise guy? I think Vegas has him somewhere around 6.5 wins. What do you think realistic expectations should be for the Cardinals? Because obviously, like last year was ground floor of a full rebuild, except for the quarterback. I don't think you're expecting playoffs. That would be lofty expectations. Do you think 7 wins is reasonable? I'm not saying you think they'll get there, but is that reasonable expectations?
Expectations, yes. Do I think they'll get there? Well, it's going to be tough because I'm looking at their schedule here, and it's not easy. Let me read the first 6 games.
Okay.
At Buffalo versus Los Angeles versus Detroit, the Commanders, at San Francisco, and at Green Bay.
Whew.
It doesn't get much better on throughout the season.
That could be a 1-5
Miami,
start.
Chicago, Seattle, you got San Francisco
Minnesota,
again.
yeah.
You got Los Angeles again. So, yeah, the schedule doesn't look like it's going to ease up on you at all. And I'm not fully convinced that we know who Kyler Murray is yet. I don't think we've had a chance to really see him develop on the field. We've seen his star capabilities come out early in the rookie season, but we haven't seen the full development into an NFL quarterback take place. And I hate to bring this up, but perception is reality, right? I don't care what the stats are. It's how does he look on the field? Because that matters. How is he in the locker room? Is he a leader? I don't know. I don't know that he is. I'm not in the locker room every day, surprisingly.
Ryan, I think that's been one of the big questions about him, though. That's been one of the negatives we've all heard, is that he is not a leader, that he doesn't take over that leadership role. I think if he wants to succeed as a quarterback, because he has immense talent, he's going to have to figure out a way to bridge that gap. Not all quarterbacks have that swagger, that, Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady thing, but you kind of have to fake it if you don't, okay? And at the end of the day, whatever he has to do, he has to make those guys in the locker room believe that every time we go on that field, Kyler Murray, our guy, he's going to go try to win us this ball game. He's going to leave his heart on the field. I think he can do it. I kind of feel like Kyler Murray is going to have a really good season. Not like a spectacular blow us out of the water season, but I think we're going to be impressed with his play and give him a longer leash and say, okay, let's see what he can do in 2025. That's the goal. He's just got to show he can perform at a high level worthy of the money he's getting paid.
Yeah, and I believe everybody can transform into a new person, into a new player. But when the whole contract situation came out about putting gaming conversation into the contract, I knew instantly that's obviously such a problem that they had to even bring it up.
Right. And they so knew that everyone was going to see it, too.
That told me a lot about it, right? Or about him as a person. And so I hope he's changed. I hope he's become more mature because you got to, look, these guys are coming from college, man. They're kids, and right. I understand it. But at the same time, you're about to get paid a truckload of money. And yeah, the NFL permits you to say, you know what, I could just suck it up and I'm still guaranteed money and I'm still a millionaire and set for the rest of my life. But at what point are we going to see him actually play for that money? That's what I'm waiting to see. I hope we see it this year. I hope the best for him because I like him. I love how he plays, and I would love to see it develop into more of just a solid game plan instead of just trickery or luck. That's what I want to see this year from Kyler Murray. If I don't see that, I'm super concerned as an Arizona fan.
100% correct. I've seen the athleticism. I can see that. That's great. The athleticism isn't going to impress me. What's going to impress me is quarterback play. Can you go out there, stand in the pocket, and play quarterback in the National Football League? That's what I need to see from Kyler Murray.
Biggest storylines of 2024, Tristan, for the San Francisco 49ers. Let's talk about them. Tell me what they are.
I think the biggest storyline for the 49ers is this the year? Can you finally get over the hump and win the Super Bowl? We know you've got the talent. We know you've got the coach. We know Kyle Shanahan's a great coach. He's made it to 2 Super Bowls as a head coach. Unfortunately, he ran into Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes in both of them. Okay? I understand. That's a tough break. But this is kind of not their last opportunity, but this is kind of the last hurrah for the 49ers as we know them. That team's going to look a whole lot different once you got to pay the quarterback. And the way he's playing, you got to pay him something, okay? We can all keep having the Brock Purdy debate, but if you don't think Brock Purdy is a good quarterback, you're not watching football, okay? I'm not saying he's elite. He is a good quarterback. He is worthy of a contract. You have to pay him after this year. Brandon Ayuk is kind of fed up. He wants a contract. You've already given Debo big money. Christian McCaffrey is 27 years old. You know, how much longer is he going to be able to play at the level he's playing? Because let's be honest, Shanahan uses the crap out of him, okay? I mean, he runs him nonstop. This is it. This is the year. 49ers fans, pump the brakes. I'm not saying that if they don't win the Super Bowl this year, they're never going to be in it. They're still going to be a really good team in 2025, a really good team in 2026. But we've talked about this with the Bengals. We talked about it with the Bills. All these teams, once you pay the quarterback, and I'm not saying Purdy's going to get Mahomes money, but I mean, he probably will because that seems to be the way the market's going. We'll burn that bridge when we get there. Once you pay the quarterback, you cannot build this great team around him. All of these exquisite players that the 49ers have, not just on offense, but on defense, to where every time they step on the field, they have a better roster than you. Does anybody in the league have a better roster than the 49ers? Probably not, right? I mean, like, it would be hard-pressed to say anyone does. So you have to take advantage of it. They've done a great job. But to me, that's where it all lands. Like, the spotlight is on. This is the year. After this year, it's going to get way more difficult. Way more difficult once you got to start paying players.
Well, and honestly, you know, I heard Cowherd the other day, and he said that the 49ers kind of got a little bit of a break with the schedule, and I completely agree. I mean, this schedule is really, I don't want to say a cakewalk, but for them, it's kind of a cakewalk, or at least it should be if they play to the same potential that they did last year. And what I mean by that is every element of that team has to play lights out for them to take it all the way. They don't have a quarterback that they can rely on to win the game. I don't think Purdy is that guy. Matter of fact, I know he's not.
I disagree. I disagree completely.
He's not the guy to put the game on his shoulders and go
What
win
are you talking about? What are you talking about? Did we not see him do that in the playoffs?
Did we see him do it in the Super Bowl?
I mean, we can debate how he played in the Super Bowl. I thought he played good, not great. He was against Mahomes. He left the field in overtime with the lead. He went against Jordan Love. He outdueled him. He went in Detroit. They were down. Yep. 20-something points. He brought them back. This is the thing. I'll give you whatever you want. I'll give you any premise you want. I used to be where you were. You cannot watch that Detroit game and say that about Brock Purdy. He single-handedly brought them back from the brink against Detroit in the NFC Championship game.
I will give you that because I actually remember texting you saying, my gosh, I was wrong. He did it.
Because I was like, outside. I was with you. I wanted to see it. But when he did it in the NFC Championship game, I was like, okay.
But outside of that one time, I'm not discounting the guy at all. Okay, that's not what I'm doing.
Usually he doesn't have to, though. Like, their team is so well built, he's not put in that position often.
See, that's what I'm saying, though. So every position has to play to their full potential. Nobody can take an off week, right? Like, for this team to be successful, because you don't have a quarterback that can bring these other players up. Patrick Mahomes, right? I know he's the GOAT or one of the GOATs, and it's kind of unfair to compare to him. But everybody around him plays better when he plays. Right. He brings everybody up, right? You would agree.
100%.
Jared Goff, another one of those guys that everybody around him plays better when he's on the field, at least at Detroit.
Yeah. Josh Allen, same way.
Josh Allen's
the talent
one of those
around
guys.
Him. Yep.
So Brock Purdy is not that guy to me, though. He cannot elevate the talent around him. And I think that's been evident throughout last season. Not that he can't every now and then put the game on his shoulders and go win it, but he's not built like that.
I kind of agree, but I kind of disagree. I think you're definitely shortchanging him a little bit. But here's what I want to get to. Where do you think they land? Do you agree with the premise that this is kind of the year? Because I see what you're saying. We can debate Brock Purdy another day. For the sake of argument, just say I grant you all of that. I grant you that premise, okay? With that said, they have the roster this year where he's not going to be put in that position hardly ever. Do you think they can get over the hump? Do you think they are the favorites in the NFC? I mean, they've got to be the preseason favorites, right?
Yes. There's no doubt about it. And again, that's why I'm saying this offense, I mean, Shanahan runs a spectacular offense. he is the guy that elevates the players. It's 100%. Not the quarterback on the 49ers.
He's the star.
Shanahan.
Yep.
And so you actually see his chess game play out on the field every single week. And he can outmatch anybody offensively to defensively running the game. With the schedule that they have, the talent that they have, I think the 49ers have a really good shot at making it all the way, and I would be hard-pressed to find another team that's set up this perfect to actually make it all the way to the playoffs, kind of without a scratch, I would imagine. But here's what I don't want to happen. I'm afraid this will happen, is they will get so comfortable through the regular season that the playoffs, it's going to drop kick them in the face, and they may be actually lights out when it comes to the playoffs, and they won't be used to having to play that hard that late in games if they've had kind of an easier schedule where they've maybe put the game away in the third quarter several times throughout the regular season. So that's what concerns me is, when you're facing opponents that they don't match up to you well, you kind of get a little complacent, and I just don't want that to happen to them. I don't think Shanahan will let that happen.
Right. That's what I was going to say.
But it is concerning.
That's fair. I'll say I agree. I think with Shanahan, and because this team's been there, like they've been through the grind, I don't think their schedule is super easy. They've still got the Chiefs. They've got, obviously, their division, the Rams. They've got the Lions, the Bills, the Bears. They've got some tough opponents there. I just think they need to make the most of this opportunity because this is the last chance with a really, a better roster than most of the teams they're facing. Whereas next year, it's going to be more evened out.
Seattle Seahawks, give me the biggest storylines for their 2024 season. Tristan, take it away.
I'd say mainly the defense, but just what do they look like in the post-Pete Carroll era? Pete Carroll has been the coach of Seattle for so long, it's hard to picture them without him. It's hard to picture a new identity. But when you think about Pete Carroll, you think, what? Defense, right? Like, Great defenses. I agree it was time to move on from Pete Carroll, and then I went and looked at some statistics, and it proved the point. Look at this. These are the last 4 seasons. The Seahawks defense, the last 4 seasons. Points allowed going from 2020 to 2023, 15th, 12th, 26th, 28th in the league. Yards a game allowed, 22nd, 28th, 26th, 30th. And then you look at their overall team record, 12-4 in 2020, and then it was basically downhill, 7-10, 9-8, 9-8. For a coach who is supposed to be a defensive wizard, a defensive mastermind, to be, lower than 22nd in yards a game and lower than 15th points allowed, that's not good, particularly if you look at 2022 and 2023, 26th and 28th in the league. It's obvious just from looking at that Pete Carroll didn't really have it anymore. For whatever reason, he couldn't get that team to come together. He couldn't get that defense to work. It was declining. You bring in Mike McDonald from the Ravens. He was an excellent defensive coordinator, I think second best in the league behind Spags. But is he going to be able to unlock Geno Smith, get more out of him? Because I think as long as Geno Smith's your quarterback, it's going to be hard to win more than 9 or 10 games. I do think he'll have the defense playing better. I think they'll be top 12 in most of those categories. But the main question is just what are they going to look like without Pete Carroll? Is it going to be better? Is it going to be worse? Is it going to be different? I don't know.
Based off your graphic that you just pulled up, I would hate to imagine a world where the Seahawks are worse.
And that would be a disaster.
It really would. And with such a staple of a name as the Seattle Seahawks, and I think that bringing in Mac McDonald is going to be your best foot forward, along with all pretty much new coordinators as well,
right.
Who McDonald single-handedly selected, I would imagine.
A complete overhaul, yeah.
And so I think what you got to look at is I'm not too focused on Geno. And what I mean by that is I don't think you can get any more out of Geno. I think Geno puts up what he can put up, and that's it. I mean, he's an older quarterback, and he had a late bloom in the NFL, thanks to maybe Pete Carroll. But the point being is, if you can make this defense in the top 12, if you can make it in the top 10 and take that pressure off of Geno, I think that's going to be your biggest X factor throughout the entire season.
I really like that. I think that's a great point. You're saying don't expect to get anything else. What we've seen from Geno is what you're getting out of Geno. However, if you can give Geno a top 5 defense to where, hey, Geno, you don't have to go score 28 a game. You can go score 20 and we'll win. You can win more games inherently, particularly in the NFC that way. And you could make a deeper playoff run.
Yeah, and you've lost
that's
some
a great way to look at it.
You've lost some big players too at Seattle. You lost Bobby Wagner, Quandre Diggs. You lost some pretty big staples there, but
Sure.
you did gain Jerome Baker, Tyrell Dotson, Byron Murphy. So they've done a good job with kind of backfilling some positions on both sides of the ball. But I put all my effort, and being a defensive head coach, I would imagine that the office of the Seattle Seahawks felt the same way by hiring a D-coord, because as a head coach, you don't see that much in the NFL anymore. That's kind of going to the wayside. You see a lot of these offensive minded head coaches come into the league.
We say we don't see it anymore. We wish we didn't see it as much as we did. It's like, Chicago defensive, Washington defensive, Seattle defensive. Oh, fuck it. Defensive.
Yeah, but it's still an offensive league, and I think
agree.
I think Seattle has a perfect opportunity to make this a defensive season, especially for Geno's benefit.
That's how you get the most out of what you have at quarterback. Because I wouldn't have said it that way, but the fact that you said it, you're 100% right. You can't upgrade the quarterback position this year. But when you have a good defense, you're not going to require that much. So I agree with you. It's going to be back to that, top 5, top 10 at every category. Take the pressure off Geno and hope we can get to 10, 11 wins.
And that's true to any quarterback, right? If you have a better defense, you have a better quarterback almost all the time.
Hey, who won the Super Bowl this last year?
And how good was their defense?
I was about to say, it wasn't because of the offense.
Right. So that's true to most quarterbacks, right? But especially in Geno's case, it has to be true for the Seahawks to have a 7+ win season. I think anything over 9 wins is a stretch, but I think they could finish second in the division, and they could probably squeak out the Rams if everything went perfect for them. No chance they beat the 49ers, but I still think they could make a wild card run. I just don't think they'll make it past the wild card round.
Yeah, it really comes down to...
And hey, if they do, hats off to McDaniel,
right,
because he's done something I don't think is possible.
I just don't see the offense making big improvements. Maybe they will under Darian Grubb, the guy that he got from Kalen DeBoer, who was supposed to go to Alabama, then went to Seattle. But I'm also worried about that because he's never been an NFL coach. Like, you're bringing an offensive coordinator from Washington, college, who had a good offense, but college to the NFL is a different game. I think that might be a bit of a learning curve. I'm a little concerned at just transitioning from a Hall of Fame coach at Pete Carroll, even though it was, dwindling the last couple years. Is the transition to McDonald going to go smooth? Is the defense going to elevate immediately? Or is it going to be, take some time and it might be 2025 before we actually see it come to fruition? I'll be interested to watch that, but I believe he'll get that defense dialed in by week 4 or 5. I really do.
My biggest takeaway is the team is pretty comparable to last year. You've lost and gained some players that kind of breaks you even, because when you look at everything, when it all shakes out, you pretty much have the same components of the team you had in 2023. It's, can this coaching staff push them further than they were able to go last year, especially in the defensive category?